Hello and welcome to this tutorial video on compound interest. In this particular movie, I'll show you how to calculate compound interest using the mathematical formula which you have already might have studied in your schools, and using the Excel formula as well. Okay, and then we'll see some examples. Now let's talk about this one. This is the mathematical formula which most of you have studied. That's my guess. And if you want to find the return or any investment, or let us say if you are willing to find how much money overall you are paying against some money you are going to borrow from a bank, then how can you find that? So we use simply this formula. A, it is basically the future value of the investment or loan, and it is the amount. If you are taking the loan, this is the amount you are going to pay, and if you are investing, this is the amount you are going to receive, and this is equal to present value. For example, if you are borrowing 2 lakh money, then 2 lakh is the present value, and if you are investing 2 lakh money in some project, that is going to be the present value again. So PV multiply by 1 plus R by N. R is interest rate, annual interest rate. N is the number of time that interest is being compounded per unit time, and T is equal to the time period for which you are going to borrow that money or you are going to invest that money. All right. Now, if you are going to look at the Excel formula to calculate the compound interest return through the compound interest, we use the formula FV, and under this FV formula we are going to pass 5 different arguments. The very first argument is rate, and this is the constant interest rate per period. NPER is basically total number of payments period in an annuity. For example, if you are borrowing money for 3 years and the interest is being compounded semi-annually, so that means in a year the interest will be compounded 2 times. So 2 into total number of years, which is 3, which is 2 into 3, which is equal to 6. So 6 is going to be NPER. PMT, and what is PMT? We are going to cover that in the very last sheet. For now, it is basically, let us say you are borrowing 2 lakh money from a bank for 3 years. Now some people tend to submit some amount as interest yearly so that their principal doesn't go up. So if you are going to do that, that is what we call PMT payment. You know, the payment you are going to make periodically. So even if you are not understanding what is this, just wait till this last sheet. This will be very clear by that point. PV, what you are going to invest or what you are going to borrow, that is what you call PV, and type, whether you are going to make the payment at the end of each period or at the beginning of each month period, that is what we call type. And FB simply turns the future value of any investment, or if you are borrowing some money, it is going to return how much in total you will have to pay. So let's take an example. I'm going to borrow 30,000 from a bank for 3 years at an annual interest rate of 8%, and I have to find that what is the total amount of money that I'll have to pay after 3 years, provided the bank is compounding the interest semi-annually. Semi-annually means for the first 6 months the interest will be calculated, and that interest will be added to your principal amount, and after that 6 months that will be your principal. Okay, for example, if you look here, this is the amount you are borrowing, 30,000, and within after half an year, which is 6 months, I'm going to calculate the interest over this period, and whatever I'll get, that I'm going to add this, and for the next 6 months that is going to be the principal amount. And that is exactly what we mean by compound interest. After a certain period, your interest get added to the principal amount. Now I have already mentioned those value here. This 30,000 is my present value, and number of payments is equal to 2 per term. The reason is this is a semi-annual compound interest. So if it is semi-annual, that means in within a year we have to compound that 2 times. So this is 2. If it is quarterly, then this value should be 4. If it is annual compound interest rate, it should be 1. And the interest rate mentioned is 8%, which is given here, and I'm borrowing this money for 3 years. And since I'm borrowing, so principal amount is going to be positive for me. And now I'm going to show how to find the return using Excel formula and using this mathematical formula as well. So to find the return using the Excel formula, I have to type equal to FV, that means future value, rate, and rate is always going to be annual interest rate divided by total number of terms within a year. So it is going to be this much. So basically this is an annual interest rate, and since I have to pay the interest is compounding semi-annually, that means after 6 months, so that means I'll have to divide this by 2 to make it semi-annual interest rate, and that is why this division is there, comma, NPR should be equal to total number of years multiply by number of payments per term, which is 2. Now this basically means that I'll have to compound that 6 times. Okay, so that means the loan is being taken for 3 years, and after every 6 months I have to compound. After every 6 months I have to compound the interest, so that means each year I'm going to have to compounding, so it is going to be 3 into 2, which is 6. So this is basically the same thing. This cell into this cell is going to return me 6. Payment in this case is 0, comma, present value is this one, and type is equal to 0 because I'm going to pay at the end of the period. Close the bracket, press the enter, and you can see the return is going to be minus 37,959 because I'm borrowing a money, so it is being credited to my account as a positive, and when I'll return this, I'll have to give this much amount, and you can see that is what this negative sign represents. So every formula does take care of these two things. If this is positive, this is going to be negative automatically, and if this is negative, this is going to be positive automatically. Now I'm willing to find the same thing using this formula to see whether I have calculated this correctly or not. So all I have to do is go to this cell, type equal to PV is this much, multiply by, start the bracket or parenthesis, 1 plus R is this much divided by N, and N is going to be this cell, bracket close, and to the power n times this. So I'm going to use this symbol, bracket start, and this symbol is basically just press shift 6, you will get this symbol on your keyboard, shift and 6, and this is n is going to be this much, multiply by t is going to be this much, close the bracket, press the enter. Now you can see this mathematical formula doesn't take into account this positivity or negativity. So if you want consistency, all you have to do is just add a minus symbol, so that makes more sense. You can see that. Okay, and if I'm willing to find how much interest I have paid over this amount, so all I have to do is just sum these two numbers equal to what I have borrowed plus what I have returned. So you can see minus 7,959.57 paise. This is the money I have returned as interest, and of course if I have taken this money, I'll have to return that too. And that is the reason the sum of these two is equal to this much. And when I'm talking about sum of these two, I'm talking about in absolute term, not taking into account this negative sign. Okay, now just to give you a sense how does it work, just have a look. I'm going to delete this, and you can see that I'm going to take the money principal amount 30,000 initially, and semi-annually means that after every 6 months the interest is going to be added to the principal amount. So after 6 months, what will be the interest? That is going to be the money that I have borrowed multiplied by the rate, and I cannot multiply the annual rate. I'll have to divide this by n. So this is going to be 8% divided by 2. So basically 4%. If 8% is annual, semi-annual is going to be 8% by 2, which is 4%. I'll press enter. So 4% of 30,000 is 1200. Now after 6 months, this principal is going to be equal to the initial amount that I have borrowed plus the interest of 6 months for 6 months, which is this one. Now in the next 6 months, the interest will be a little bit higher. Oops. I should have fixed these two cells because they are not changing with the drag. So I'll fix this by pressing the F4 key on my keyboard, enter, and now I'll drag this. Okay, so you can see for the first 6 months the interest was 1200, and the next 6 months the interest went to 1248 because the principal amount went up by 1200. So I'll drag this till this point, and I'll drag this too. And you can see after every 6 months the principal is kept changing, and that is exactly what I mean by compound interest semi-annually. And as this principal amount is changing, you can also see the interest rates keep on increasing. Now let's take this second example. In this case, have a look. Again, I'm borrowing 20,000 rupees for 3 years, but this time instead of a interest rate of annual interest rate, we have monthly interest rate. So when I'll mention this into this cell, I'll make sure I have converted this into annual interest rate by multiplying that by 12. Okay, just have a look. Equal to 0.75 multiplied by a year has 12 months, so 12. So this is going to be 900%, and I have to divide that by 100, 9%. So 0.75% monthly is equal to 9% annual interest rate. Now rest of the calculations are same. Okay, so I just wanted to make this clear that whenever you are doing this, make sure that monthly interest rate is converted into annual interest rate. Let's take a look at this third example. In this case, I'm going to borrow 1,50,000 for 3 years again, and with an annual interest rate of 12%. Now I'm willing to find what is the amount that I'm going to pay back to the bank after 3 years, provided the bank is compounding the interest semi-annually. And there is another clause that I am submitting 25,000 or depositing 25,000 after each period. Now this is what we call PMT. If you remember this term, I told you that I'll talk about this in detail. Now this is what I mean. Okay, so if you look here, the principal amount that I've taken is 1,50,000, and since it is a semi-annual amount, I'm going to make n is equal to 2. If it is monthly, I'm going to write 12. If it is quarterly, then I'm going to write 4 because a year has 4 quarters. Now payment after each period is minus 25,000 because this is the amount you are borrowing, so it is a positive amount, it will be credited to your account. And this is the amount you are paying after each period. In this case, after each 6 months, that is minus 25,000 because this is the amount which is going to be debited from your account. Annual interest rate is 12% and year is 3. Now if you write this formula, this is how you can write: equal to FV rate is 12%, which is in cell E13, divided by N, because this is a semi and this is being compounded semi-annually, so I need to divide that by N, which is this one, comma NPR, which is nothing more than the product of N and T. So T multiplied by N, comma, this is the payment that I'm going to make after each period, which is this much, comma, present value of the loan, this much, comma, type is equal to 0. So that means I'm going to pay out at the end of the period, not at the beginning of the period. Enter, and you can see if I'll take 1,50,000 from a bank on an annual interest rate of 12% and interest being compounded semi-annually, then I'll have to return 38,394 at the end of 3 years, provided I'm submitting 25,000 after each 6 months. Okay, just to make this thing clear, have a look on this table. I'm taking money 1,50,000 and I haven't paid initially anything, so it is going to be 0. So balance will be 1,50,000 minus 0, which is exactly equal to 1,50,000. After 6 months, since the 12% is the annual rate, and I'm calculating semi-annually, so semi-annual rate will become 12% by 2, which is 6%, and 6% of this 1,50,000 is 90,000. So this is the interest on this balance, 1,50,000, and when I'll add these two, my principal will become 1,59,000 after 6 months. But at the same time, I'm going to submit 25,000. Okay, you can see this is a negative sign, so that means that I'm going to submit this to the bank. So the difference will become 1,59,000 minus 25,000, which is equal to 1,34,000. Now next, after the next 6 months, the interest will be charged on the balance amount, not on this amount, because you have already paid 25,000. So bank has no right to apply interest on this amount. Okay, they'll have to apply the or calculate the interest over the balance amount. So on this amount, again, they found the 6% of it and they got this much. Okay, and so on. And if you'll keep doing that, you'll see after the end of 3 years, the balance that you still need to pay is 38,394, which is exactly this much. So I hope that this payment of 25,000 makes sense to you. Okay, by now, by looking at this calculation table. Still, if you have some problem, feel free to post your comment and I'll get back to you with the solution as soon as I can. Okay, have a nice day. Thank you.